And the latest from the Ukraine-Russia war, where Ukraine has been battered yet again. This time, Russia has launched one of its largest drone attacks on the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv, faced what its mayor calls the biggest Russian drone strike yet in this war. Overnight, Russia unleashed 48 drones, 2 missiles and 4 gliding bombs in Kharkiv alone, a strike that Mayor Ihor Terekov has described an open terror. The destruction was sweeping. At least 3 people were killed and 22 others injured. Among the victims, a baby and a 14-year-old girl. Further south, the city of Kherson also came under fire. Local officials said 2 more lives were lost in Russian strikes there. The attack comes on the heel of a massive wave of air assaults that swept across Ukraine on Thursday night. The attacks targeted multiple cities in what Moscow claims is retaliation for terror attacks by the Kyiv regime. Those attacks included Ukrainian drone raids on 5 Russian military bases last Sunday. On that night alone, 6 Ukrainians were killed and 80 more were injured, as over 400 drones and nearly 40 missiles struck cities nationwide. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has called the overnight attacks by Russia a massive strike on cities and ordinary life. He said the onslaught touched almost all of Ukraine, including the capital Kyiv. The strikes also hit the northern city of Chernihiv and extended west to Lutsk and Ternopil, where Russia claimed it targeted military infrastructure. On Saturday morning, Ukrainian Air Force claimed they shot down a Russian Su-35 fighter jets in the Kursk direction. That's the claim made by Ukraine, to which Russia has not commented. The Ukrainian military called it a successful operation. But even as Ukraine tries to push back, the global debate deepens. On Friday, U.S. President Donald Trump said he hopes that Russia does not resort to a nuclear war. He added that Ukraine gave a reason to Russia to bomb them.
I hope not. I hope not. I think it's a war that would have never happened. If I were president, that wouldn't have happened. I certainly hope not. Well, they gave Putin a reason to go in and bomb the hell out of him last night. That's something I didn't like about it. When I saw it, I said, here we go. Now it's going to be a strike.
This comes as Russia asked the UN nuclear watchdog on Friday to mediate between Moscow and Washington to resolve the question of what to do with U.S. nuclear fuel stored at a Ukrainian power plant controlled by Russian forces. Russia wants to restart the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant that lies near one of the front lines of the war in Ukraine and once generated a fifth of Ukraine's electricity. The fuel question is one of various issues standing in the way. And joining us on the show tonight is Lieutenant Colonel Daniel L. Davis, military expert and host of Daniel Davis Deep Dive on YouTube. Welcome to We're On, Colonel Davis. I want to first start up with asking you that Russia has launched one of its biggest attack on Ukraine since its full-scale invasion a few years back. And it also comes at a time when Trump has clearly said that Ukraine gave reasons to Putin to bomb them. Your assessment of the situation, and where does all of this leave peace talks at this point of time?
Yeah, I think that this is just a continuation. You talked about these strikes on Thursday night, which went all across the country, and then the overnight shots against Kharkiv city, which was the biggest that had been of the war on the single city there. And I think you're just going to continue seeing this. When we saw Putin respond to his bombers being attacked on the same days that he had a civilian train attacked in southern Russia, another bridge that was knocked out in the southern part of the country, when the Kursk bridge was again attacked underwater, I think that he finally had just reached a point where he's going to take the gloves off, I think. And I think that what you're seeing in the anger that he had when he addressed the nation was very unusual for him. And so we've seen now 2 straight nights of significant bombing, and I doubt that that's the end of it. That's all coming simultaneous with increased capacity on the front lines, especially in the Sumy area and in the Kupiansk and Liman area on the eastern front. And you ask how this is going to play out towards peace talk. I think Russia has clearly indicated there's not going to be a peace negotiations. They have said that if you don't take this 12-point plan that they gave at Istanbul last week, which frankly is pretty much terms of surrender, then their ambassador to the United Nations said then they will win on the battlefield. And that looks like exactly what they're doing.
Colonel Davis, you do speak of how there's no end to the attacks from Russia and Ukraine, and now Russia has said that there's going to be no peace negotiations. That's what you say. I will seek your assessment on the fact that Trump has said that he hopes no nuclear attack from Russia. At this point of time, how much influence does U.S. actually have on Russia? Because for the past few months, we have been seeing the U.S. president urging the hostilities to stop, but there has hardly been any change on the battlefield.
Well, I would go so far as to say there hadn't been any change. You haven't seen any change from Volodymyr Zelensky. He has obviously continued and, in fact, has accelerated his attacks into Russian territory. You don't see any change in the Western European countries. They still talk about they want more sanctions. They want to build up combat power. They want to keep supporting Ukraine. And then on the Russian side, they have continued without stop their offensive operations on the front line and are now accelerating their air campaign. So if you're just looking at the reaction of it, the truth is the U.S. president has had no impact on any of this. The question is going to be, is he going to be willing to walk away from this and completely leave it up to the two sides to figure out, along with Europe, or is he going to do what Lindsey Graham wants, which is to put in sanctions, whatever? That's not going to have any impact on the battlefield, though. So I think that we need to be sober-minded that there's very little that the American president can do in this.
Right, Colonel Davis, thanks very much for joining us here on WION and sharing your insights with us.
Thank you very much.